Good afternoon from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. It's great to see all of you. I'm Justin Walmart, CMO, and at the Chamber, we think making a job is a noble pursuit. So thank you for all that you do. And we want to be the wind at your back. And it's why we have events like this and why we launched a Co. And you can check that out at growwithco.com. We're going to dive on in just one moment. I'm thrilled to be joined by Ashley Swenson. She is the VP of Retail Marketing at Staples. Staples is a great partner to us and to chambers of commerce all over the country. And we're going to talk about marketing during this crazy time. But first, some housekeeping. We want to make sure that you're all on mute, that you turn your cameras off for now, but we do want to see your face during our Q&A, and that will be the majority of our time with each other. If you'd like to ask a question, feel free to check out the toolbar that is in your Microsoft Teams box there. And there you can submit a question to the meeting chat or also raise your hand as well. This meeting is being recorded just so we can share it with other business owners as well. So with that, we can go ahead and dive on in. Good morning, Ashley. Afternoon.
Hi, thanks, Justin, and thanks everybody for joining. I'm thrilled to be here. Really excited to share a couple case studies and answer all sorts of questions that you may have. So I'm going to start with a brief presentation, if I can figure this out. Hold on, bear with me. Oops. All right. Justin, since you're probably not muted, can you let me know that you can see this? Great, thank you. So first, a little bit of background on Staples Retail. My hope is that most, if not all of you, are familiar with Staples Retail, but I don't want to make that assumption. So I'm going to give you a little bit of context. So Staples has just over 1,000 retail locations in the United States. We're really focused on community, working, and learning. We serve over 15 million customers, from entrepreneurs and small businesses to parents, teachers, and students. And I'm thrilled to be able to share with you today 2 case studies around reaching a changing customer base. The first one is really going to be around back to school. So a little bit of context for you about back to school for Staples Retail. Back to school is a critical season for the Staples Retail business. It's super important to us from a financial perspective, both on the top and the bottom line. We plan for the season well in advance. So from a merchant perspective, our merchants right now are planning for 2021 right now. And from a marketing perspective, we had our plan, pretty much our strategy and plan set in the January time frame. We felt really good about it. And then the pandemic hit. Boom. From then, we changed, we made more changes, we made more changes, and we made more changes again. I would say that the changes have continued to happen up until even last week and are changing on a day-to-day basis. I can imagine that's something that all of you feel in your day-to-day worlds, both personally and professionally as well. I'm going to go through a couple different ways that Staples marketing changed during this period of time to reach out to those customers who's obviously were going through a lot of evolution. One way we changed our marketing was in our messaging. Back in the spring timeframe, we honed in on a message we thought would be super relevant and with our customers about the back to school season. At that time, we thought, aren't students and parents and teachers going to be so excited to go back to normal in the August and September timeframe? And wouldn't a message around back to awesome be fabulous? It would resonate with what all those customers were feeling, and we felt really good about it. And I have an example here of what a sign would look like in store. Well, as time moved on, and by early summer, we realized the fall was not going to look back to normal the way we thought it was going to be. And so, as you know, across the country, there's a lot of ambiguity around what new school was going to look like and when it was going to happen. So we knew that some communities would be going back fully in person, some would be hybrid, and some would be remote. Some would be starting earlier, some would be starting on time, some would be starting later. It was a potpourri of ambiguity. And as a result, we shifted our messaging to be able to reflect all of that. So you see here an example of an email we had that talked about learning from anywhere or school deals for home or for hybrid. Another way we adjusted was in our marketing mix. So we learned during the pandemic that our consumers were consuming media in a different way. We also knew that the business was putting new demands on us to be nimble and to be really speedy. And given the state of our business, we had a much smaller marketing budget than we had planned in January and than we had the prior year. As a result, we needed those dollars to work even harder to drive folks into our stores. And the combination of those three different factors actually moved us more in the direction of moving to a digital environment where we were efficient, we could be speedy, and where our customers were. A third way that we changed to meet the needs of our customers was around our promotion and our products. In the new school landscape, some of our traditional breadwinners like binders or glue sticks suddenly were not relevant anymore to our customers. Whereas things like face masks, PPE, hand sanitizer, blue light glasses were super hot. We changed these up and we changed them often. Often we changed these with just a few days notice. So again, we had to be very, very nimble. And last but certainly not least, we developed content and solutions to meet our customers as they're navigating this new remote learning environment. I don't know about you, but remote learning certainly was a challenge for me and for my family as we've tried to figure out how my kids would be productive and happy when they were not in school. So things like, what kind of headphones do they need? How do I set up an ergonomic workstation? How do I keep them organized? How do I make sure they actually go to school? And so we developed a lot of content and shared that with our customers. And what's great is that we feel really good about the back to school season from a business perspective, as well as from a marketing perspective. These are all new muscles that we learned and had to develop to be able to meet our customers where they are. The second case study I want to share is around our small business customer audience and our pivot towards solutions. When the pandemic hit, we needed to manage costs and we needed to manage them fast. Sound familiar? I bet a bunch of you experienced that as well. We worked quickly to scale back and candidly turned off all of our marketing activity that we had going on. So this included things like digital media and radio or direct mail. We also shut down what we considered our owned assets or marketing assets that don't cost too much, like email and organic social. It wasn't appropriate for us to be shouting about deals on reams of paper and ink and toner while we were all told to stay at home and avoid spreading the virus. And this was a first for Staples. It was a first for me personally as well. And it was an amazing opportunity. It didn't feel like an opportunity at the time, but I can tell you now, it was an amazing opportunity. What we were able to do is to really focus on our customers. We listened to our customers. We listened to small businesses, parents, we listened to teachers, and tried to understand what they were going through and what they needed. And from there, we got scrappy. We developed a whole host of solutions content to deliver to our customers to help them get through this tough time. And what's really cool and makes me really proud to be a part of this team is that it wasn't a big corporate initiative with millions of dollars and an army of people doing this research and gathering these insights and developing the content. At the time, the vast majority of our team was furloughed and we had no money to spend. Those that weren't furloughed channeled all of their energies into rolling up their sleeves, reaching out and talking to customers in the neighborhoods in a safe way, of course, and developed solutions for our small business customers. So there are a couple examples here on the screen. We featured some restaurants who pivoted their in-person dining to new takeout focused models with new unique service elements to differentiate them. We shared tips from brick and mortar shops like a bridal salon who moved virtual mid-pandemic and has seen a lot of success. And of course, storefronts that embraced new protocols and procedures to welcome customers in a safe and virus-friendly way. Where expertise was needed, because mind you, our team we're truly not experts in a lot of these different things. We reached out and established partnerships with credible folks, and the Lonely Entrepreneur webinar is an example of that. And guess what? Our customers told us they loved it. Those small businesses that were featured saw an increase in their growth of their business. We had thousands of engaged webinar participants. And our email and our social engagement, when we measured it, was on par with what we've seen in our most productive sales driving activities. This was a great lesson for our organization. At Staples on retail, we're on a mission to move from being a seller of office products to a provider of solutions for working and learning. And this pandemic experience really helped us accelerate in that direction. And I would say that this pivot towards solutions is part of our day-to-day today, even though we're not fully back to normal, but we're back into a place where we're leaning more heavily on sales driving than we were at the dearth of the depths of the pandemic. So with that, I think we're going to kick it over to Justin in Q&A. So I'm going to.
Thank you so much. That was so helpful. Helpful. Yes, we do want to get to your questions. So feel free again to put them in the meeting chat or to raise your hand. You'll see your hand on the toolbar that's either at the top or bottom of your Microsoft Teams window. So you said something really important, which is to make sure that you're meeting the customers where they are. And in this moment, that doesn't mean physically, right? It means meeting them where they are and choosing the right tenor and tone and message to. How during this time period has the Staples brand evolved?
Yeah, great question, Justin. And it's actually a really serendipitous one for Staples Retail. Staples Retail is about supporting small businesses and consumers with the products and services they need for personal and professional growth. And that brand strategy has not changed. However, when you think about what the pandemic has done, it's changed the way that consumers and businesses work and learn. And this is a perfect example. I imagine this event would be happening in a much different format if we hadn't had the pandemic. The way that all of you as as businesses and consumers work in your day-to-day lives has changed. And so we are activating on the brand strategy in a way that is different than how we had originally planned, but the strategy is sound. And if anything, the shift towards remote working and remote learning has provided an opportunity for us to lean in to something that didn't exist as much before the pandemic. So it's been really exciting. Our merchant team has done a fabulous job of bringing new products and services. So for example, Wi-Fi is a need that many of our customers have, both from a product and a service perspective. That is increasingly relevant, and we can deliver that. Things like lap pillows for your laptop, or cozy blankets or something like that we might have thought of before as like, that's not really that relevant for us. Well, in this working and learning environment from home, it's different. And I think that the opportunity there with solutions has only grown.
Great, that's great. Do you have any advice as business owners, I'm sure, plan to do a lot more marketing online? Do you have any advice on how they can measure their overall campaigns and impact?
Yeah, so measurement is something that I am passionate about. If you ask my team, they might even say obsessed about. And at Staples and retail, being a brick and mortar organization, sometimes it's tricky to be able to measure. In a fully digital environment and an e-commerce environment, it's a whole lot easier because you can track everything. And I think at Staples in retail, historically, we have had a pretty robust and rigorous approach to measurement. So if you think about everything from email or direct mail or social, we look at all sorts of different metrics from those channels. We have a very aggressive test and learn approach. We do a lot of fun, exciting, very complicated regression modeling to understand incrementality. And this is all stuff I love. And guess what? When COVID hit, we stopped spending our money. We had all of our tests were thrown out the window. And this new variable around certain geographies were open, certain geographies were closed. There was just so much more variability in the mix that measurement was really hard. And I guess what I would say for myself and for Staples, and this is a little bit different than Justin where you're going, I'll share my experience and then I can get to your question, is I've actually had to get more comfortable with not knowing everything. I've had to get more comfortable recognizing that, one, we don't have the tools and resources to dedicate to a lot of the sophisticated measurement that we've had in the past, just because we are focused on cost and managing our costs in a really strong way. And two, again, these variables are so different. So trying to test a control market versus a test market, or even within one geography, two different channels is tricky, because how do you know that the baseline is the same? And so what I would say for myself is I've actually had to become more comfortable with less information and more comfortable with listening to the customer and delivering on what the customer needs, which seems very obvious, right? It's not sophisticated, it's not complicated, but this whole experience to me has really reinforced the importance of understanding your customer and what your customer needs, and any way that you can gather information about that customer. So again, it doesn't need to be fancy research. It could be a face-to-face conversation. It could be a conversation via social media. It could be when you're engaging with someone walking in the door, picking up the phone, asking them, how do they feel? What do they need? How can we help them? And it's a lot less fancy and sophisticated, but we've found that it's been a whole lot more impactful in the recent past.
That's great. That's great. We have someone asking, what is the current status of the Staples stores? Are they open and can you go in and print?
Yes, please, all of you, go and print. Our Staples stores are all open. The majority of them are open. There are probably a handful over the course of the country that at times may get closed because there has been a contact in place. And when that takes place, we go through and thoroughly clean and keep the store closed and then reopen it shortly thereafter. We were very fortunate during the pandemic that we were designated as an essential, with essential status, which enabled us to stay open. We sell, as many of you know, and maybe some of you don't, we sell PPE. We sell a lot of hand sanitizer. So we were always open for business. Now, as you can imagine, in the depths of the pandemic, traffic was low. We had to make a lot of adjustments to our business model to support that. So we had shorter hours. We actually developed curbside as a solution. And this is something that came from our field organization that said, we want to do this. And we know that there are all sorts of technical reasons that make it hard, but this is what our customers want. And we want to be able to develop this. So we were able to launch curbside as well. So yes. In addition to what you might think of traditionally from an office supplies perspective, we sell a lot of technology. So pretty much everything that I'm using today to enable this conversation is something I bought at Staples, from a monitor to a webcam. I don't have a ring light, but I probably should. And to our services. So in print and marketing, from a small business perspective, from a consumer perspective, we can support you, and we are wide open. So come on in.
That's great. We've got a great question here about trying to get customer feedback and input. So for a company that has a limited research budget, what's the best way to get that feedback from customers? Is it phone calls? Is it focus group surveys?
Yeah, so different models provide different opportunities, and they have different investment levels that go along with them. I mean, to me, and after being a part of an organization that is, a large big box, I have seen a refreshed value for just that face-to-face interaction when, and this is what we heard from our small business customers as we were going through the process of understanding their needs. And so just having that mindset to engage with customers and to ask them, what do they need and how can you support them, is the baseline. Social media is another one. Often we talk about social media as a mechanism for us wanting to push our message out, but it's also a great opportunity to listen to what your customers are saying about your brand and understand, what they like, what they don't like, and what they want, where they're looking for feedback. So those are just, simple ways. I would say over the course of the pandemic, things like focus groups are not in a physical space, are somewhat hampered just because it's not as COVID friendly as it was before. But there are also online survey ways that are in different technologies that are not big dollars that can replace that type of thing.
Got it. Thank you very much. We've been hearing a lot from a lot of companies during this time period that it's easier to do business with the people that know you, but it's really hard to get to know new people and bring in new business from new people. Is that something that you all see as well? And do you have any tips on that?
Yes. So acquisition of new customers, any way around it, is tough. I think in this environment where we are not as free to flow amongst each other, physically, makes that even more challenging. At Staples, we are really looking to drive success of our customers in working and learning. And so for us, actually communicating what that value proposition is really important, because that might be different for most folks as to what they think about Staples. They may think about Staples as this place where I'm going to buy paper clips, and file folders. And that's not what Staples is all about, where Staples Retail wants to go. We want to support small businesses and consumers in working and learning. And so for us, it's about how do we get that message across to those customers, and to make sure that we are hitting on that. They understand that we're focusing on their needs. And so I would say I would be really clear about what your value proposition is, what you're looking to deliver to that audience, and where you can find them. Are there new avenues where you can try to reach those different customers? And there are actually, I mentioned digital marketing earlier for us, and digital marketing is something from a very small company with a very small budget all the way up to the big dogs can engage with. It's really a nimble and effective way to consider trying to find new audiences.
Very, very helpful. Thank you. Feel free to ask any questions in the chat box there. We absolutely want to hear from you, or also raise your hand. We've got a couple of good ones that have come in. One of them, which is important, is if you're a service business, how do you market yourselves during this time period when people are not, such as a staffing firm, when people are not bringing new hires on board? What's the best way, if you're a service business, to get your service out there? And one idea also could be to join your local Chamber of Commerce too.
Great plug there for the Chamber of Commerce. I completely agree. It's interesting with the pandemic. Obviously, there have been some industries or some value propositions that have shot through the roof, and others that have been really hampered. And I'll use the example of the bridal salon that we featured in some of our small business spotlights. This is a true brick and mortar store that really had very little in the way of digital engagement. And for those of you who aren't very close to the sort of bridal dress industry, you are procuring a product, but it is really a service in a sense. It is very much a relationship oriented. So I'm using that example, even though there is a product involved. But customers were not comfortable, and they were told not to leave their home, so they're not going to be going into a bridal shop. But that bridal shop reached out and tried to understand what their target customer was going through and understand how they could help them. And so, my guide would be to say, in a staffing environment, is your target audience going through right now? They may not be looking for permanent or temporary help, but they're probably trying to figure out how to engage their workforce. They're probably trying to figure out how to connect with existing associates on their team. What's on their mind? Try to understand what's on their mind, and that too, can do a couple different things. One, it gives you an opportunity to establish a relationship, and that relationship is beyond the transaction, right? It's beyond that core business that you're trying to sell staffing. So you're investing in that relationship. And two, it may also help you to assess how you might be able to evolve your business model to meet that need. And so when the time comes for that company to scale up and to engage in additional staffing, you may be top of mind, one, because of the relationship, or two, because you've been providing some ancillary services to them that they didn't think about before.
Thank you very much. Yeah, and if you're in the service business right now too, what we're seeing from a lot of our member companies also is that this is just a really difficult time to actually hire people, on board them. And oftentimes the companies are going to service providers because they want to bake in the flexibility of their business model, right? This has been a challenging time, and we're living month to month. And so the ability to be flexible has had a lot of our members go and outsource more with service providers too. So thanks for that. That was a great question. We've got some other great questions. Thanks so much. We've got a owner of a private art gallery who would love to hear if you've got any tips for that kind of sector and how to market it.
Yeah, so I think I'll give a little bit of an example. It's going to be not exact, but bear with me here. One of our customers was actually a woman locally in the Metro Boston area who provided lessons to students and adults in art. And as you can imagine, in person lessons. And as you can imagine, like that came to a halt really quickly. That instruction, that in-person engagement was just not something that was going to be appropriate in a lockdown environment, and honestly that people have some discomfort with even today. And that person moved her model to become a digital model. And you might say, well, with art, is it something that's part of the experience is being in a studio or in a gallery and experiencing all that is involved with that. And I guess what I would ask you to think about is, how could you create that? What is the value that is delivered in that in-person experience? And how can you translate that into an environment that doesn't require a physical visit? And that may be sacrilegious in a gallery environment, and I understand that, but I would encourage you to try to push the boundaries of that. We've seen a bunch of I've seen a bunch of experiences where a physical experience has translated to a digital one that I never thought could happen again. And we're seeing it, and I don't, my perspective is that when the pendulum swings, we're not going to go back to where we were pre-COVID. I don't think we're going to be in a place where we are today, but I think it's going to be somewhere in between. And so if that in fact is likely, then we can't rest on the laurels that we had pre-COVID. It might not be as extreme as where we are right now, but it's going to have to be somewhere in between. So the business model is going to have to evolve as a result. Thanks
very much. Very helpful. It's been fun to see. I'm a big art fan, and it's been fun to see some galleries really make that change and go online and show up in interesting places like the podcast or the Facebook. What is the role of social beyond just simply doing direct marketing to sell wares? What is the role of social in terms of building your brand and building the overall ethos of your business?
Yeah, so social is a beautiful thing because it can be very, for us, it's very productive in driving sales and products, which is great. But it also is really a reflection of your brand. And you know, as a small business, there are a bunch of different ways that you can use social. Obviously, one is organic, so posting information that you have on Facebook or Instagram, whichever platform resonates best with your target audience. So with our target audience, we've seen Facebook and Instagram be most successful. Um, it's also a channel that you can use with a small amount of dollars. You can amplify again, and this can be to, Justin, to your point of selling wares, but also in getting your message out there. And one of the beautiful things too about social media and digital media in general is that you can do a lot of targeting. If you think about the old days of direct mail, you're trying to, buy certain audiences, buy certain traits of customers, demographics. That principle is obviously moved to the web, to the digital space, and has, is exponentially improved in the ways that you can go after customers. And so, that amplifying organic with some paid is a piece of it. We've also had a lot of success, and I recognize this is something that is, for a large organization with number of stores, is that we've been engaging at a local level, our stores and our general managers, to engage with their communities using social. And I wouldn't discount as well, we were talking earlier about how to get feedback from customers. This is a fabulous medium. You can, customers will offer feedback, whether you want it or not, it can be good, bad, and ugly. But you can also engage in a dialogue with social, which is something that you can't do in a lot of other mediums. And so it's also something that you can, it is easy to hop on and to try to start those conversations and get those dialogues going. Doesn't cost much money or any really at all if you have some following, and you'll get a response like that.
That's great. That's great. Thank you. You have somebody asking about a value proposition, and maybe just to broaden that a bit. So what is a value proposition? Why does it matter? And what is the value prop of Staples?
Ooh, oh, that's a great one. To me, so for Staples, our value proposition is about we are delivering support to small businesses and consumers to provide solutions for them to achieve personal and professional growth. That may sound like a canned answer. It's because it's ingrained in me. It's about what are we going to offer at Staples that is going to provide value to that target customer. And so, if you think about a couple of years ago, and you think about the office product industry, a lot of us sold a lot of office products. And you might walk into an Office Depot or an Office Max or a Staples, and the stores look the same and the products are pretty much the same. There's not much differentiation between one or the other. And if that, in that case, there's not much growth, there's not much differentiation between who you are and what you're providing to your customers. And, communicating your value proposition and evolving your brand is not an easy thing to do, especially in some cases if you have many, many years of being this other thing. And so for Staples, we want to help small businesses, we want to help consumers, and we want you to achieve your goals. And so what we're constantly trying to do is to figure out what are your needs as a small business. Often pre-pandemic, because the pandemic has created all sorts of new ones, but access to financing. How do I manage my business? How do I hire? We've spent a lot of time trying to understand with small businesses, what do you need so that we can then help you? And that, those customer needs are not defined and static. They evolve. And this pandemic has actually showed us how quickly they can evolve. And for us, as I mentioned earlier, we can feel really good that our strategy of what we want to accomplish has not changed. We want to support small businesses and consumers in achieving their personal and professional growth. How those consumers and small businesses are engaging in what their needs are completely different. And so the value that we're providing is the same. The way we're activating it, the way that we're delivering on it is different. And that is all about customer needs.
Makes perfect sense. We've got a great a question about sustainability. And I'm wondering how that has changed over time, both in terms of how Staples does business and also the products that you sell, and sort of how as a brand you talk about that to your customer base.
Yes, great question. It's actually something along with analytics that I'm very passionate about. I would say sustainability has been a focus for Staples inherently because of the products that we sell. We buy and sell probably more cut sheet paper than, I don't have the stats on me, I probably should, than, many companies in the US. We also sell and buy a lot of ink cartridges. Over the years, we have developed programs where we can support recycling for small businesses and consumers, whether that be recycling of technology or recycling of ink and toner cartridges, elements like that. We've also been very active in the stakeholder community around paper procurement and NGOs or internationally around paper. I'll be honest with you, though, that I wish we as an organization made sustainability a larger priority and then communicated it to our customers. The challenge with that is balancing driving profitable sales and driving growth and trying to figure out the right way to message that. So I guess in sum, I would say I feel good that we are delivering recycled content products. We're providing recycling opportunities for our customers, and we are in the procurement of a lot of our paper products. We're doing so in a sustainable way. We also have a lot of foundational elements around facilities and transportation and carbon and this, that, the other. We don't do a great job talking about it.
Makes sense. Got it. We've got a couple of questions here around basically doing things that were in person, offering things like events, services, or having a robotics learning platform that's sort of hard to do in this environment. Do you have any advice for business owners that when things were in the analog world, it was great, but now in this world, it might be a little bit more difficult, how they can be agile maybe?
Yeah, well, and Justin, you're probably even better equipped to answer this than I might be based on the experience with the chamber. Yeah, so moving analog to digital, I would say we're working to figure that out ourselves too. So I'm not sure if I'm going to have a hit it out of the park answer for that one. I'll give you an example of something that we're working with that I wouldn't say struggling with, but we're trying to figure out at Staples. Earlier this year, we launched a number of new concept reinvented stores in the Boston area and under the banner of Staples Connect. Incredible spaces. And if you are in the Boston area, I encourage you to take a look at them and experience them. It's like nothing you've ever experienced before. These stores were designed with the focus on community and connection. And, as we think about retail and the role that retail is going to play in the future, community and connection is really, really important. We listened to our customers and asked them what they wanted, and we heard this loud and clear. And so we developed these concept stores that include podcasting, co-working, and some community spaces where we actually brought community members in and they can use that space. And so the store became almost a community hub. And that was the goal. So we launched these stores in February, weeks before COVID hit. And so right now we are looking at that model and saying, how do we want to reimagine this? How do we want to evolve this future? To your point, taking an analog, we still know community and connection are important, but a physical space where we're going to have lots and lots of people come together is not going to be feasible in the near term. How can we adjust the way we activate on that strategy and deliver it in a new and different way? So I would say we at Staples are trying to figure that out right now. I would say that we have done a good job too at Staples, and I know the chamber has a ton of resources around this as well to spotlight how a whole bunch of different small businesses have made this transition. Again, from from an art studio or art instruction to a bridal salon to restaurants. I mean, you name it. There's a lot of entrepreneurial spirit to try to figure out how to maximize on the value proposition in an environment where there's pressure on the analog experience. Right. So that doesn't give you, I recognize it doesn't give you a handbook of solutions, but hopefully it shares, one, you're not alone, we're all figuring it out together, and two, there's a whole host of resources and other small businesses that are working through these challenges too. I know the chamber has a bunch of resources on staplesconnect.com, which is the digital experience of that reinvented store. There's a whole bunch of spotlights and examples of how we're showcasing small businesses who have done just that.
That's great. Thank you. Yes. Yes. We are all trying to figure it out. That's for sure. At the chamber, we convene hundreds of thousands of people, even in the building that I'm in right now. And the building's been closed for 7 months, right? And so, as we've talked about it as on our end, on our teams, and this is just general advice, just blow things up, put everything on the table that you can to see how you can change things. And also feel the burden of opportunity too, right? I mean, we now have convened in a couple of months, we convened more people than we did in a calendar year live, right? So being able to broaden the overall reach has been a great byproduct of this time too. But it's, this is if you're doing things the same way you did them pre-pandemic, you're definitionally doing them wrong, right? The ability to embrace a change is a key thing in this moment. We've got a question around shipping and shipping charges, and we're doing a lot more shipping just generally. Do you have any, does Staples do much in that area? And I guess generally with just the overall, I'm mindful that the printing and everything else of that nature is a big piece of your overall operation. Are there ways that the customers can be saving money?
Yeah, so we've actually we have a full service from products all the way through to services on shipping. And so, whether you're a small business selling direct, selling through something like Etsy, eBay, what have you, we have the products that you need, and we have shipping services that can help you get on your way and are actually a whole lot more accessible than a traditional post office does. So and with that, this is a part of the business that we're really looking to cultivate and to grow. Again, it provides a service and a solution for our customers. You might just, instead of just buying the products, like how can we help make it easier for those small businesses? So you can pack it, you can ship it, you can return. We're also in the process of providing a return service through a new vendor, so that if you're receiving packages from an e-commerce provider, that you can come and return those to our print marketing services area as well. It's a whole lot easier than having to go and ship.
Thanks for that advice. So what do you think the future of brick and mortar is? We've got the chambers are a brick and mortar business, the Staples is. What do you think after we emerge from this, what the future of it might be?
Yeah, so if we were having this conversation in January, I probably have a little bit of a different answer than I do today. I don't have a crystal ball, and I am, like you, probably a little subjective on the topic. I do believe there's a place for retail, and I think retail is this is a really exciting time for retail. And there are a variety, to me, of different forces that are putting pressure on retail. So on one hand, let's not discount the fact that many retail shops were closed because of the pandemic and the pressure that puts. And now that we're in most cases able to be open, a whole new layer of complexity around operating that retail storefront in a safe environment for associates, for the business, and for the customers. So, that's a challenge, but is also something that is becoming more and more feasible. And, just to talk about Staples and try to provide, we've tried to help both with content and solutions around that, as well as things like signage to help small businesses to figure out how to navigate all of that. So that's sort of on the challenging side. To me, on the true opportunity side, is this experience for me and for many has increased the importance of that local touch, of that interaction, of connection and community that I might not have felt before. And an e-commerce provider is not good at that. Retail is great at that. You all are great at that. And so, my hope is that as as we continue on in this journey and this experience, that that's going to impact more and more people, and the refreshed value of retail is going to win out, or is going to increase at least. This is not a contest, it's not a game, but that it will be recognized, because obviously there has been with the depths of the pandemic, a shift towards e-commerce, and the need to be safe had necessitated that. But as we're coming out of it, I think we as a group are figuring out how we can operate retail and sort of reap those benefits, and doing so in a way that is still safe.
That's right. That's right. That makes perfect sense. We were talking, and this speaks to the need to be really, really agile in this moment, but you had a fun story, I think, about how you had to reinvent making a TV ad.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, so agility is a word that we're using like gazillions of times a day. And I'm sure all of you are feeling this too, in your organizations. Traditionally, we would create a back to school television spot. We'd start planning it in the January timeframe. In the May timeframe, we would get together, usually out in California. We'd have a director, we would have talent, we would watch it in person and provide feedback. It was a whole ta-da. And then the TV ad would be born. This year, first of all, we decided we weren't going to invest in television because we didn't have the money for it, and we didn't want to be constrained with the restrictions of television, which are once you buy it, you pretty much have it. You can't get out of it. And so we decided that we were going to invest in digital video instead. So if you're on streaming, on Hulu or this, that, the other, YouTube, we would show the ads there, which allowed us to be a lot more flexible, but it also allowed us to target our audience even better. But when it came time to create the spot, when we were working with an agency, we were like, how are we going to do this? Like, I'm not going to fly to California. How are we going to find actors? Like, no one's done this before. What are we going to do? And I have to say that I was really impressed with the collective team and the way that they were nimble and agile and creative, and came up with a new way of doing it. And so we found a director who was willing to use his house for the video. He was willing to use his family as the talent in the video, and his neighbor that they had been quarantining with, neighbor's family as part of it as well. The shoot was held in a completely safe manner. So there were masks worn, there was hand sanitizer everywhere. And then for the Staples team, instead of flying out to California and being there in person, we just Zoomed in for Saturday. And we did this on a Saturday and Sunday. So we just Zoomed in for 2 days and provided feedback on the way. And, it was a really cool experience. I think the end product was great. You could find it on YouTube. But what was really fun was the innovation and I use the term scrappy, the sort of like fun and creative ways to be able to get to that product without all the traditional rigmarole.
Right. That's great. How fun. How fun. Well, I think we're out of questions, but thank you all so much for tuning in. Ashley, thank you so much. It was great to hear from you and learn about everything that Staples is doing and how we can help business owners thrive. And thank you all for joining in this week at the big week for small business here at the Chamber and at Co. So thanks, everyone, and we'll see more of you soon. Take care.